David Campbell got a taste for overseas work early in life as a Peace Corps volunteer, but he came back to UNM to get his law degree and built a prominent career here as a private attorney. He also served as city attorney under Louis Saavedra and volunteered on numerous boards. Then, at age 55, he decided to pursue a lifelong dream to join the Foreign Service. 2 weeks from departure, he was tapped by the new mayor, Richard J. Berry, to become his chief administrative officer, and he did that until 2011, when he joined the Foreign Service and was posted to the island nation of Mauritius. Campbell talked with NYF producer Megan Kamerick in late March on a visit back to Albuquerque before starting his new position in Ecuador.
David Campbell, thank you for coming by to talk with us on your stint between diplomatic posts.
Well, you're welcome. I'm pleased to be here.
So tell me, you had a long legal career here and with several city administrations. What possessed you at age 57 to change all that and join the Foreign Service?
Well, I had, since I was 18 years old, had this notion that I really wanted to be somebody who worked overseas, who spoke other languages, and who represented America to foreign audiences. I went to the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, and one thing led to another, and I never did that diplomatic thing.
But you went in the Peace Corps.
I did. I went in the Peace Corps, loved that experience, and would recommend that for young people coming out of college. Well, people of any age, because they'll accept people of any age. But I did that, got a real taste for what that might be like, and when the kids were grown and out of the house, it was time for us to think about something else to do. And this has been a wonderful career experience and a learning experience that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Where did you go? You went to Mauritius?
Right. Our first assignment was to the island nation of Mauritius, which is about 600 miles east of Madagascar, in the Indian Ocean.
Wow, that sounds remote.
Well, it is. In most times, we were 12 time zones away from the United States, which means we're halfway around the world.
Yeah.
And we also represented the United States in the Seychelles, which is an island group just north of there, where they were impacted by Somali pirates. And that became part of the work that we did, was coordinating the response to the whole Somali maritime piracy issue.
What did you do? What was it like to land there?
Well, it was, first of all, it was fascinating. It was a fascinating place to live, but the work was very intensive. We worked with the militaries of a number of different countries and with the diplomatic missions of countries to try to stop the attacks on the shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean, for which we had some success. In addition, when we did catch, for example, the United States Navy, who's terrific and does a great job in that area, when they would catch a skiff of Somali pirates, we had to find a way to bring them to justice. And so I would meet with the judges, justices, and the prosecutors in various countries to talk to them about prosecuting these pirate cases.
Then your legal background.
And the legal background, yeah, that came in very handy there.
What was the most surprising thing that you didn't expect when you got there?
The most surprising thing, I would say, is how people in that area who were of many different faiths and cultures, cultural backgrounds, how they really got along with each other. I mean, there were Hindus of all types of sects of Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and others.
All in a small nation?
All in a very small, I mean, the nation was the size of Bernalillo County.
Really?
With 1.5 million people. So they're pretty packed in. And if there was going to be any kind of conflict, you certainly would see it. And yet they were very respectful of each other's religions, culture, background. They celebrated celebrated religious holidays there. So it was a pleasant surprise, a delightful surprise that there was that much respect between and among very different groups.
What did you find were the perceptions of the U.S. that you felt you could represent or give a more realistic tone to?
First of all, they know an awful lot about us. Our media is international, is worldwide.
For good or for ill.
For good or for ill.
Yeah.
So Let me give you an example.
Did they know Breaking Bad?
Oh, absolutely. When I would tell them that I was from Albuquerque, they'd go, Breaking Bad, you know. Not only the foreign audience, but certainly the Americans that I would talk to. But I'll give you an example. In the 2012 presidential election, when it was Romney versus Obama, I had a number of people asking me, well, how's it going to turn out? How will that election be? And one guy in particular, a guy who makes sandwiches in the market, you know, I would go and buy a sandwich at noon. And he said, one day, he said, where are you from? And I said, well, I'm from New Mexico. And he said, well, that was a blue state in the last election. It was incredible.
Oh my God.
That somebody you know, who makes sandwiches in the marketplace would have that much knowledge about our country. So, number one, they pay close attention to us because we're kind of noisy and they can't avoid us. The other thing they pay attention to is some of the bad things. It was unfortunate when terrible things would happen in the United States. You know, the shootings in Colorado, the shootings in Connecticut, the children in the school. And people would come to us with tears in their eyes and say, please express my sympathy to your country and your president because we feel so badly about this. And there was a sense that it could not be safe to be in the United States. I mean, we would like to attract tourists to the United States, but many of them say, I'm afraid it's not safe there because they believe that what they hear in the news about shootings and crime and so on is pervasive in the culture.
What would you tell people, given your experiences, young people or people who are older, midlife career, about making this kind of change or working internationally? You've been here talking to various groups.
Sure.
What should they know? What kind of skills should they have?
We're in the 21st century. And the world has shrunk, and it is now possible, if it wasn't before, and I think it was, but if it wasn't before, it's now possible to work internationally and still stay very connected with home. I've been urging particularly young people, but people of any age, to consider learning languages, getting involved in international relations, staying in touch with what goes on, and if they're interested in it, pursuing opportunities to live and work overseas. It's a phenomenal experience, and it's a very good time to do that. Our children are here in the United States, and Shelley and I were able to talk with them regularly on Skype, so you're not that far removed. That's what I mean by the world has shrunk. And so the kinds of objections that you may have had in the past are certainly not there today. But it's also a great way to keep your mind and sort of your whole attitude engaged in a new pursuit, which it has been for Shelley and I.
What's next? You're going to Ecuador, I believe?
We are. Our next assignment is as Vice Consul in the consulate in Guayaquil, Ecuador, where we will deal with immigration issues and helping Americans who are either living there or traveling in that area. And we're really looking forward to that part of the work.
And you're also learning Spanish. You've been learning Spanish for the last 5 months.
Yes.
You knew French, but now you're learning Spanish.
French was our language in Mauritius, and now we're learning Spanish.
What's it like to try and learn a new language at 60?
At 60. It's fascinating. I think our brains are adept enough to do this kind of thing. But what I've found is when I've seen friends of mine who have retired and sat at home, that's unfortunate. They tend to decline. They get sick, or they find that they're just bored with sort of retirement. This turns out to be a very active way to stay engaged and to learn to do something new. And I recommend it to people, like I said, of all ages, but people who have done a career successfully can actually be very successful, bring their wisdom and their life experience to a job like this, or in the diplomatic corps, or in the Peace Corps, or in international business. And it's available to us now.
Well, David, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us before you jet off to your new assignment.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're going to stick around. We'll continue talking for a little Web Extra.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.